You're listening to the Grieving Mamas Club podcast, a space for moms who are on the wild ride of motherhood while navigating their grief journey.
We're Kara and Rashida. Between the two of us, we're motherless moms of 4 toddlers and an angel baby. Together, we're going to feel our feels, but also remind you that there's joy on the journey too. Let's dig in. Hello, listeners, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 6. We are just cruising right along in this season. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, oh yeah.
Is it episode 6?
No, you're right.
7.
It's episode 7. Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Kara's like, give me that damn credit.
Yes. Well, my note.
My notes, I know. Actually, my notes also say 7. Yeah. Pull out the receipts. The receipts. So, episode 7, it is even better. And we are welcoming our 3rd guest of the season. We are just cruising right along, telling wider stories of grief than just Kara and I alone, which actually makes me really excited because that's kind of the whole point of this thing.
Right.
This guest I'm really, really excited about. So she is one of our for real OG listeners, who has been listening to the podcast since Kara and I put this baby out into the world. And then as we were prepping to get on this call and talk through what we were going to do, she let us know she listened to all of the episodes again, to prep for her episode. And Kara and I truly can't believe someone wants to listen to us
Again, and more than one time. She listens to us more than we listen to us.
It's just taking notes. That makes me completely it gives me all the good feels. But I'm super excited to welcome to the show Cat McMillan. She is going to be talking to us today about goodness. I'm calling it compound grief, because there's a whole lot of facets to grief to her story. It starts with losing both of her parents, which is obviously a grief. We've done loss of moms and we've done loss of dads. But never one person, both losses. So excited to tell that side of Cat's story. But then there's also just other pieces of grief that kind of interweave within her story. So Cat, we're so excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me too, Kara, Rashida. This is going to be cool. I'm not going to say fun, but
I know.
It's going to be a really good experience, I think. Well, it's going to be fun too.
Yeah.
It was fun. But you know what I mean.
Yeah. I know. We're talking about death and all kinds of sad shit.
Death is a part of life. Here we are.
It is. We always are. It's always weird for us to be like, yeah, we're so excited you're here. But it's like, we wish you weren't.
Yeah. Not under these pretenses I wish we did not have to meet, but here we are. And we're happy you're here. And we're happy that we can all be here for each other.
Yeah. So listeners, Kat and I had a little bit of a pre-call last week to just kind of talk through the pieces of her story. And one thing you said, Kat, that in my notes when we talked, that you were like, my first encounter with grief. I loved that because it's almost poetic.
Yeah.
So talk us through that. So let's talk through kind of your grief story and journey. And you can jump in wherever you want to.
Sure. Yeah. When I was just thinking about, I talked to you a long time ago about if you ever wanted to have me on the show, I'd be interested. And then when we scheduled it, I was like, okay, well, let me really think about what this means to me as far as what was the first time I experienced grief, and how did that affect me in the way I grieved these other significant losses in my life. And so I really went all the way back. It's what's the first thing I remember was, I have a little timeline here. My grandpa died. My mother's dad died when I was in 1st grade. And I was just talking to my sister-in-law yesterday about remembering things from preschool and kindergarten. And she was like, you remember preschool? And I was like, yeah, I have a lot of memories from that. And I don't know if that's unusual for most people, but I have a lot of memories of what happened when my grandpa died and I was 6 years old.
Wow. I think that's pretty unique.
Agreed.
I guess so. I mean, maybe just because I thought about it a lot afterward and played it over and over in my head, but my mother was very devastated by it. I didn't even really know why he died until like, I don't know, in the last 5 years, I maybe like learned the actual reason. He was in the hospital. And I remember thinking, my mom would say, well, we couldn't go visit him. I wanted to see him. But she's like, sorry, they don't allow children in there or something like that. And I visualized like getting on my brother's shoulders and like putting a trench coat on so I could like sneak into the hospital as a grown up.
Spectre Gadget Austin Powers
Yeah.
style. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that never happened. And then, I don't really remember when they told me he died, but I just remember like crying to my first grade teacher and, drawing a bunch of pictures to put on his casket at the funeral and like kind of remember what that looked like. And, and so it was also pretty devastating for my mother at the time, but I was still pretty young to like really see that what impact it had on her, until a little bit later. But that was like my first one. And then there were just some others scattered through. Like I remember learning of another student in my school when I was in 5th grade who died from leukemia. And that was kind of a big deal because she'd been sick for a long time and we were a very small school. And so everybody knew her. And yeah, and I went to her funeral and it was like an open casket. And it was like, I didn't really remember that recently until like I was kind of thinking about coming on this podcast. And I was like, whoa, I do remember a lot from that. So yeah, I was I guess 11 at that time. Then I, was in high school and started my year of college. 2002, I moved from Dallas to St. Louis. I grew up in Dallas with my parents. My father was a self-employed artist. He worked from home. He was an editorial cartoonist for Memphis Business Journal for like 25 years. And my mother was a travel agent at our family business. She worked for her dad. So when he passed away, she had to like take over the company. It was pretty hard on her.
That gave me a preview to the other pieces of your story. That is a parallel.
Yes, it is. So yeah, my high school life was great. I don't think I experienced any significant losses that I can think of during all that. But my first year of college, I was great. I came home for the summer. My dad spent a lot of time in Tennessee because he really hated Texas. So he would go and work from Tennessee for a while where he lived or where he grew up, and where we would spend a lot of time in the summers because my grandmother lived there. And I came home for the summer, and then I started my sophomore year of college in the fall of 2003. And, just like loving life, making friends and living on campus, loving my classes. And it's Labor Day weekend, and I think I just got out of the shower, and I don't even think I was dressed, and my phone rings, and it's my dad. And he's very upset. And he said something like, it's mother, she's gone. I don't know what happened, but I think it was a heart attack or something like that. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, Mima? And he was like, oh gosh, honey, no, I'm talking about your mother.
Oh.
And so for like a minute or two, I thought that he was telling me my grandmother had died.
Yeah.
And then he was like, no, I'm talking about your mother. And I was like, oh my God. And then I just lost it. Like,
Yeah.
how is that even? How are you telling me that right now? I'm 19 years old.
Yeah, you're not expecting this at all. Yeah, no.
Not expecting it at all. I'm completely alone in my apartment. I had a roommate who we were good friends, but she was gone because it was Labor Day weekend and she lived out in Washmo. So she wasn't there, and almost nobody was on campus at the time. And so, I kind of went into flight mode, I guess. I thought, I'm alone. I have to find somebody to be with right now. And I guess I told my dad I was going to do that. I don't really remember what I said after that, but he was in Tennessee when it happened. My mother was in Dallas. And so he was packing up the car to drive to Memphis. He was in Jackson. He was driving to Memphis to get my older brother because that's where he was living at the time. And then they were going to drive immediately down to Dallas. But I just remember, like, I just threw some clothes on and I just booked it out of my apartment. I was knocking on doors. I'm like, who's home? Who's home? Can somebody just be with me right now? And I finally found like 2 guy friends in our circle that were there, and they were just like, whoa, what's happening? You know, they had no idea what to do, but I'm just like, just let me sit on your couch and like call people and just cry.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to be alone right now. Like this.
Yeah, I can't be alone.
Yeah, like
right now.
I can't. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I first tried to go to like the friend who was the RA my freshman year. Like we'd become friends, and she lived on campus, and she wasn't home, and so like I went her first, and then it was just knocking and knocking. So I also remember being like a really beautiful day outside. I guess it was Sunday. It was a Sunday, and yeah, nobody was there because we would be off school the next day. And yeah, it was just a really beautiful day. And my aunt called me and she got me a flight down to Dallas. And I packed my bags and a bunch of friends came over and, you know, just were with me. And then I got to the airport. Some friends took me to the airport. And I think back on this a lot because it's kind of funny, but it's like, thank goodness I didn't get in trouble. But I had like stuffed all the stuff in my backpack like really tight. And so I got like pulled aside for them to go through my bag. And I was like, be careful, it might explode. I'm like crying, holding my stuffed animals.
You're trying to like making an innocent joke too. Like,
Yeah, and he looked at me, he was like, explode?
Oh no! I just like 2 years after 9/11 too. No.
I was like, no. I was like, I'm sorry. I just mean, I'm clearly I'm like crying.
Literally too soon.
it's still too soon.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So there's like the first humor in this grief story for you.
Yes. No.
But I also like immediately knew that I had to write everything down, and I grabbed like my sketchbook that I had made, and I just literally started writing everything that happened. I was like,
Wow.
I don't want to forget this. But I don't know what maybe prompted me to do that, but I was like, I'm just gonna write
Crazy wherewithal.
Yeah.
everything that just happened to me and everything that I'm feeling, all these curse words and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I also remember thinking, like, I'm this like teenager holding a stuffed animal on a plane, crying my eyes out, and not a single person asked me if I was okay.
Oh, I'm surprised.
I know. I'm like, was I that? Like, I'm tiny. I'm kind of petite, you know? So it's like, they were just like, oh gosh, I don't want to bother her. But this was also like before the iPhone. And so like people aren't just like on their phones all the time. People used to talk to you on airplanes, you know?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
don't ever talk to me on an airplane. I don't want to talk to anybody ever on an airplane.
No.
So I'm like crying and writing and like, you know, whatever.
Maybe that's why you were crying and writing, and they were like, "What's this? That could little."
Yeah. She's going through something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is surprising that no one was like at all. Even the TSA agent. I mean, granted, he was concerned about possible.
Yeah, the TSA.
Yeah.
That she was a tiny terrorist. So
Yeah. He must have seen through it and been like, otherwise my whole day would have been completely different.
Oh my gosh.
Just take her aside.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just remember getting to my aunt and uncle's house. We all like made it into town, and like I just like climbed onto my dad and like held him. It was like, I can't lose you too. It's like all I could think about, you know. And we're just all like, what the hell just happened? She was 55 years old, and she was fine, you know, the day before.
That's wild.
Yeah. But a little background on like the circumstances and just a little more about who my mom was is, she's at this point in her life where she's managing the business. Two of her kids are off to college. She has a 15-year-old son. She's sort of like, okay, I'm kind of ready to like do some things I want to do, And she had been doing a lot of volunteer work with a charity in town for years. Like I would go to the events with her and volunteer with her and things like that. And I remember her telling me like she just decided like she really wanted to dedicate more time to this. And so that Saturday was their annual fundraiser. And she was like in charge of the whole silent auction. She got her hair cut. She like, got all dressed up. It was at this hotel in Dallas, this fancy hotel. So like she and her coworker and friend got a room that night, so that they could just go to the gala and stay the night. So that Saturday night, she was having like some chest pain and stuff going on in her arm. And so they checked her out after the event. The paramedics came and checked her out. And from what I understand, she was just like, I feel better now. I had a Coke. I think it's just indigestion, and all her vitals were fine and everything like that. And then she went to bed, and the next morning, I guess when she was like showering, she collapsed.
Oh my gosh. So she was feeling so bad at the gala that they called the paramedics? Or were the paramedics there just like on standby, and she was like, yo, I'm,
I think her friend and coworker was like kind of concerned what she was saying. And so like said,
I don't think paramedics just hang out at galas.
Yeah. I mean, well, they might have been at the hotel for some reason. I don't know. It's true.
That's just like, so were the paramedics just saying that?
I don't know in what instance I was thinking of it, unless you're like at like a baseball game, a hockey game, at a huge public event, then they have paramedics there. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I just couldn't let that one go.
Okay, wow, that's pretty crazy that she was feeling bad enough that they called, and then she was like, okay, I'm feeling better, and then
and they asked her, they did the whole like, are you sure you don't want to go to the hospital? Like if she refused it 3 times, so they're like, okay, we can't force you to go,
right?
And all her vitals seemed okay at that point,
right? Yeah. What can you do? And she probably was she ever afraid of the hospital's doctors, like anything like that, or?
Yeah, good question. She definitely, much like Rashida's story and her mother, like just took care of everyone else instead of herself. She was really into like donating her time for this charity. The charity was specifically granting like wishes for terminally ill children and their families. So she was also a heavy smoker, and probably had very high blood pressure. Didn't go to the doctor, at least that I remembered. So like what
as that generation didn't do.
Yeah, the common theme between the 3 of our mothers.
Yeah, right. So we were we had no idea what happened. Everybody thought, oh, she died so suddenly, must have been a heart attack. My uncle's freaking out. He's like, I'm gonna go get checked out. I'm sure it was a heart attack, sort of thing. And then because I guess when she collapsed, like they did rush her to the hospital and they couldn't do anything. What we found out later after the autopsy results came in, which they had to do because she was in a public place, or I guess she wasn't at home. So like, I guess because she was at a hotel.
This was at the hotel that she collapsed.
Oh. Yeah, the next morning at the hotel.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. But she, I think about how like she just had this amazing night. Like she was so happy. She was like totally in her element, like doing exactly what she wanted to do. I remember I was on like AOL Instant Messenger with her probably the day before. Like I don't remember super clearly, but I'm pretty sure we chatted and said, I love you, like have those things that come for me to know that she was like just in a good place, that she was happy at that moment. But because we did have to do the autopsy, and of course we probably would have anyway, to figure it out, but she had an aneurysm by her heart. So what happens when the aneurysm gets too big, it bursts. And so she had a ruptured aortic dissection, and it filled the sac around her heart with blood and basically just stopped her heart immediately. And so that's something you just can't fix unless you're on the operating table.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Wow.
because we learned that there's some possibility of being hereditary, because that's actually what happened to my grandfather, her father, 7 years before he died. He had an aneurysm in the same, well, you can have them like, I guess, in different parts of your body, like on different vessels. So on the aorta, like goes all the way from your heart to your stomach, and his was by his stomach. So he had the aneurysm that burst by his stomach. So his symptoms were like, he just lost all feeling in his legs and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So he survived that because he was able to go into surgery.
Because it wasn't right by his heart. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is what I've learned. I'm not. I hope I have the details, fairly right. But at the time, so that was, if he died in 91, that was like 84, 3 or 4 or something like that. And he had to get a blood transfusion for the surgery, and back then they didn't have screenings for hepatitis. So his blood transfusion gave him hepatitis.
Oh.
That's what he ended up dying from complications of.
No.
Like liver failure. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But it gave him 7 more years of life,
Yeah. Yeah. That's another way to look at it, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it like, makes you so mad because you're like, I didn't do this. Like this just happened to me. And then like they were trying to save my life and they gave me a blood transfusion. And then this was a result of that. Like,
yeah. But at that time in the 80s, I'm sure that happened a lot. Like they didn't have those kind of blood tests. Anybody could give blood.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, technology and medicals changed so much. So,
yeah.
So yeah, that's what happened to my mom until that day. Of course, we get home. We all convene as a family, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. I go to bed that night, and I know because I've just always had such intense dreams. I was like, I know my mom is going to come to me in my dream tonight. And I prepared myself, and I wrote in my little journal. I was like, Mom, just whatever you do, come to me peacefully, because I do not want this to be hard tonight,
Yeah.
And I can't remember really what the dream was, but it was good. And I'm sure I wrote it down in that journal. But that was like sort of a thing that happened over and over again, was dreaming about her a lot.
I was going to ask, does she still come to you? Do you still see her in your dreams?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I dream about my mom a lot, like a lot. Yeah. And they're always, it's actually, I should probably look into this more. They're always like, we are fighting more than not in the dreams that I have with her.
It's you and me.
I know, which is funny. Yeah, which is funny to me because we obviously fought because I was 15. We were like, I was a teenager, and every teenager is like, I hate my mom.
Yeah.
But we had a wonderful relationship, so it's always funny to me that like I have these dreams where like my mom and I are fighting when that's not really what our relationship was like. And they used to really bother me, like really like in the first couple years. Waking up from a dream, like, well, and I will actually back up and say, I don't know if I've ever said this on the show. I used to have before my mom died, I had a lot of dreams about my mom dying. Like, yes, a lot of them. Like I had several dreams. Some of them I can remember vividly about my mom dying. Yes. Whoa. And so and like I would always wake up from those dreams and I would like go straight to her and be like, I had a dream that you died and blah, 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 and like all this crying and stuff. And so when after she died, it was kind of like the opposite, right? So then like you have a dream that she's there and then you wake up and she's not, and then it's like a nightmare all over again. So like they used to really, really bother me, and now they don't. Like I think that in some way, shape, or form, I like them.
Yeah.
Which feels weird.
No, because it seems like it would be like a normal, occurrence.
Yeah.
If she were
yeah. it reminds me that she existed for some reason. Like
Yes.
it's like almost like in some alternative what's the word? Yes. Universe in my brain. She still exists. Like we still exist as mother and daughter. And so then I wake up from those dreams now and I'm not angry about them anymore. But I also think that's because I'm at peace with where my life is. It's not like I wake up from those dreams and I'm like living a life I really hate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're not like, I feel like in the early stages of grief or whatever, after you lose someone so significantly and you have a dream like that, you want to, like we've said before, you have the tendency to like idolize, like put people in the past on a pedestal and only out of the goodness of your heart, remember all of the good things. So and that's what you want to remember. You don't remember, especially when you're already feeling like shit and you're sad, depressed, whatever. You don't want to remember like the fights, the arguments, how they may have been, rude or shitty or whatever. You don't want to remember that. You want to remember all of the good stuff. They loved you. You guys laughed. You had fun. You made up silly songs, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I just wake up in that, like my life looks completely different than it did. So like, it's not like I'm waking up in the same house that we were in, and so like or like waking up and I'm going to do the same things we used to do.
You're at a completely different spot in your life.
So like those dreams get to hold a different space for me and they don't always make me sad. But that's just me.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the dreams that can be really intense about my parents are just kind of like creating new memories of them, even I know that they're not real, but it's like in a way my brain's just like carrying on that relationship.
Yeah. I've read something along those lines.
I do like that.
It's like your subconscious can't come to terms essentially with the loss on such a deep level that you start to create that or carry on that life as if they're there.
I mean, yeah, in kind of a similar way, I had a lot of dreams the first year or so where I was playing out her death in different ways because I didn't witness it.
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I just like made it all up in my head with what it looked like. And some of the first ones were like super violent and scary and just like out of this world, nothing like what really happened. And so those were pretty like tragic to feel,
Yeah, it totally. I don't know why we do that. I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes I'll go back.
So I feel like your brain has to like try to fill in. Story.
Your brain's trying to like, I don't know, reconcile what happened. Like, what happened? How did this happen? Like, was it this? Was it this? Was it this?
So, Kat, you're 19. You have lost your mom. Talk to us about kind of the years after that and then the loss of your dad.
Yeah, I know. This like we could probably talk for a week. I was in school. Like I just started my second semester of college. I was in all these art classes. And I get when I'm driving home from the airport that night, like when I arrived with my aunt, I just remember telling my aunt, I'm not going to let this change me. Like, I know when stuff like this happens, people, they can spiral, they can just get out of control. Like, that's not who I want to be. I've got to like keep on going. I don't know where all this is coming from. It's just like, I'm like, this is what I'm doing, right? This is really tough. I'm going to get through it. Like I was home for like a week. We did the funeral. We did everything. I sang at my mom's funeral. How the hell I did that?
Oh my God.
You sang? I didn't know you sang.
I do like to sing. I'm not like a singer, but I'm, played around in bands and stuff. But I sang one of my mom's favorites.
That's awesome.
Two of my really good friends who were like in choir at school and like have gone on studying like opera singing. So they were like right by my side and like I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just so many intense memories from that week. But I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to school. And that's what my mom would want me to do. And I'm gonna get through this. And I made a shit ton of art about her that semester.
Cool.
And processed a lot of it that way. And that was
you. Wow. You grieve like so. I just want to stop here and say the way that you process this already, and we're not even in the thick of your story yet, but like the way that you, I guess, like I had the wherewithal to be handling this at the times that it was happening. So like to have the wherewithal to be like, I'm gonna journal all of my thoughts right now. Like to then be like, I'm gonna process my way through this by journaling and doing art and doing all these things.
Yeah.
Is so like, as we know from my story, is so the opposite of what I did.
Yeah. Same for me. I was like, does this mean I have to go to therapy? Like that was my first thought. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to go to therapy. Girl needed therapy.
Yeah.
Like, even like trying to plan my mom's funeral was so hard. I have never done anything like that before, but I can't imagine singing.
Yeah. Well, it was a short song, so that was good. But I still feel like it was like the best I've ever sang in my entire life. Like she was just giving
I'm
me
curious.
her energy.
Yes. What song is it? I'm curious.
The Rose by Bette Midler.
Oh,
I don't know if you know that song.
yeah. Yes, I do.
Okay. Not.
Wait, no, is that the sunset? I'm not.
Yes.
Sunset in love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Who cares?
Hear it. I'm gonna think of your mom.
Thank you. We also played Bridge Over Troubled Water at her funeral, and I'm jumping forward a little bit, but you guys talked about like symbols and like
Oh, yeah.
things like that.
We love symbols.
I love it.
It was the first anniversary of her death. I flew back to Dallas to like be with my dad, and I came back, and when I like was driving home from the airport, that song came on the radio.
What? Okay, I'm sorry. That's why I asked you too, because like that song is so that is
It was. I'm sorry. It was Bridge Over Troubled Water that came on the radio.
Okay, I don't know that. I have to listen to that song.
And that one is like, I don't think I had heard it in the whole year since her funeral for some reason. So it was like, oh my God, I haven't heard this in a year. And I was almost home, and I like pulled the car over, and like, I'm like freaking out, and I got to call someone. I'm out by myself, and I had another friend who I met that year who had two brothers like I do, and had also lost her mom. And her name is also Cat. And so like we had this little bond started, and I like pulled over, and I like called her, and like, where are you right now? You know?
Yeah.
And I was just like, that's so wild that song came on exactly a year from when she died.
They do. So there's she's like a medium named Laura Lynn Jackson. She has two books, one called Signs, and the other one is called The Light Between Us. I cannot recommend them enough. They're beautiful books. She's a beautiful human. What she does for everyone with just connecting. She actually works for a foundation called the Forever Family Foundation, where she connects parents who have lost their children and will communicate back and forth, for them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she says that's one of the ways that they will communicate with us is through technology. And if you just have the radio on, listen to what is being played, because they're trying to talk to you.
Wow. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really sure. I'm sure there's like so many other things that have happened over the years like that with me.
Yeah, I used to keep track of it. I kind of have stopped, but
yeah.
Well,
I'm gonna also say that to brag a little bit is that first semester when I was back after my mom died and I made all the art about her was the only semester in college I made all A's.
What?
You were in it. You were like, I'm gonna do my best. Damn it!
Oh my God.
It literally was. I mean, I made like lots of A's and B's, but it was the only one where I made like completely all A's.
Oh my gosh, that is really something to be proud of.
For real. You know what? Speaking of dreams and repetitive dreams, I frequently, this total side note, I frequently have dreams that I need to get my college transcript and can't. And like,
That's so weird, buddy.
so weird. Like, frequently need to get my college transcript and can't. And then frequently, like, I'm like, it's my last semester and I'm like failing out of classes. Like, that is a frequent dream I have for whatever reason. Maybe because I work with higher education institutions. I have no idea. But whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah.
continue on.
Oh, I did. My dad encouraged me to go to therapy. So there was a counselor on campus that I went to for a few years, and she was great. Really helped me out a lot. There are
Again,
things like,
healthiest graver.
Yeah. Truly.
yeah, I'm not sure that I would have really thought about it, but my dad was like, you should go. You should go. And he did things like, you know, we're going to have a viewing for the family. And he's like, I know it's going to be really, really hard, but you're going to regret it if you don't go and see her. It's like, don't worry. She's not going to look like herself, but it's not going to be how you remember her, but you just really should go. And so I did. And that was hard, but
Yeah. It's not the same. They don't look like themselves, but I think it's part of the grieving process.
yeah. I was so mad. It's like she never wore any makeup, and they'd be like, have to put makeup on them. But it's like, oh, she just looked terrible. She didn't look like herself at all.
No.
Yeah. But anyway, of course, I was her only daughter, so she and I, butted heads a lot in high school, and I was so mad, and both my parents were smokers, and I just hated it, and so I didn't want to be home a lot because of that, and I put up little passive aggressive notes about smoking facts and what they'll do to your body and your finances around the house. Yeah, just so mad at me. But I want to back up a little bit too, because the first semester of my college year, so right when I went to school in like fall of 2002, my dad actually went to the hospital because he couldn't breathe. He was like having, I don't know, something was going on, and he was in the hospital, and he got diagnosed with COPD, which is like emphysema, because he was a heavy smoker for so long. And all of that happened, and then he got home, and my mom didn't tell me any of that happened. And so she just called me and said, "Oh yeah, your dad's he's on hospital." I was like, "He's home now, it's fine." I was like, "What?"
Was he put on
My dad almost died, and
Yeah.
didn't tell me until
Afterwards?
he was home. Yeah. I was asking my brother about that because, he's older, and he probably remembers a lot of things better than I do. He's like, yeah, that was kind of what happened with me too. Like, she just didn't tell me until after the fact, and I was kind of pissed.
Yeah.
That's what parents, like, now that I'm a parent, though, I can see why. So, like, we all have those kinds of stories. Like, Kara, your mom and dad didn't tell you what was bad until it was bad, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, now that I am a parent, I'm like, I can see why, though. Like, you don't want to worry your kids, like,
Not necessarily. Yeah.
Yelp.
Yeah. Was he on an oxygen, Cat? Like,
He wasn't put on oxygen, but he had one of those inhalers. He immediately, they were like, you have to stop smoking. Here's a patch. Here's steroids. So he never smoked again, and my mom had to start smoking on the porch.
wow.
Yeah. So it was a big life change for them. And I was 18 then, but then after mom died, I knew he had COPD, but I just didn't really know anything about it. I just thought, oh, okay, he's got an inhaler now. Then he can't smoke anymore. Okay. So I guess we can flash forward to I finished college, graduated in 2006. My dad still lived in Texas because my younger brother was still in high school, so he stayed until he graduated, and he graduated high school in 2006 as well. So then I'm tasked with helping my dad clean out the house, and he's gonna book it back to Tennessee because he hates Texas, and and so that was my summer after college, was doing that and getting him moved to Tennessee and settled back in there. So then I get my first job out of school, and I got a boyfriend, I got an apartment. I'm like, hey, I'm doing the thing. I got a design job, and, happy. I got my friends, I got my apartment, everything. And then June 2007, my dad calls me when I'm at work, and he's like, hey, his mom lived in Tennessee too, my grandma. And she was 88 at the time, and still driving, still living at home, doing great. But he was taking her to a doctor's appointment and ran into a light pole and wrecked the car real bad, and she broke her leg. She got really bumped and bruised up.
He was driving?
He was driving. And she was in the hospital, and she was hurt real bad. So he's like, Catherine, you got to come down here. I had a bad car accident. I'm bruised up. I'm okay, but your grandma's not. And so we were really close, all those years I was in college, and I went down there. I was like, what happened? And I just think that he had been experiencing some symptoms like sleeping a lot and having a hard time like focusing and dialing the phone and just being really fuzzy brained. And he had been going to the doctor in this podunk little town and trying to figure stuff out. But I just wasn't really aware of like that he might have been really worried about it. So he might have even like dozed off or something like it caused him to hit that light pole. And there's still, for years and years after that, like that chunk still taken out of that light pole every time I drive by it. So like that now. And it's like just this total symbol of this terrible day of our
Yeah.
So that was in June, and July, August, September. So like almost 3 months later, I could work from home at my job at the time, or like remotely, which was cool. Like nobody's
Yeah, I know. Like, what year is this? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my boss was awesome and trusted me. And so my dad was like, hey, I'm having a really hard time. Like my grandmother, I guess, was home after being injured, but he was taking care of her, but he couldn't because like he wasn't feeling well himself. He's like, I'm just not feeling good. I'm like really tired all the time, and I just need some help with your grandmother for a little bit. Like, can you come down here? And it was like a Wednesday or Thursday. And I was like, sure. So I got up really early the next morning, drove down there. It's 4 hours from St. Louis. And I'm just like chipping away, like working, hanging out with my dad, taking care of my grandma, blah, 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 doing things, and noticing, like he's like really sleepy a lot. And that Saturday morning, I guess I got up and like, I think we made breakfast. Let me backtrack because that Friday night was fun because we like sat on the back porch. I played him some music that I've been listening to that he would like, and he drank a Smirnoff Ice. I don't know. He was just like trying it, and maybe he thought I would like it, and he bought some. I don't know.
Oh,
he was like a total Busch Light guy. So
yeah.
But we sat on the back porch, and we just had like this really nice time talking. And he was an editorial cartoonist where like he did a cartoon every week for the paper. So that was like the night where he finished the cartoon and had turned it in already. So he was like relaxed. And the next morning got up, we ate breakfast, and he went back to sleep. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go like run some errands and go see Mima. And he was in the bed, and I kissed him goodbye, and he kind of mumbled something, and I was like, okay, Dad, I'm leaving. And I couldn't really understand what he was saying. And I go to like Target for like 2 hours. I'm just like shopping and buying my grandma things, buying my targeting, go pick up some Schlotsky's Deli and take it to my grandma and sit there and eat it with her. Try to call my dad while I'm there so she could talk to him, and he didn't answer. And she was like, huh, that's weird. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to go home now. I'm like ready to go home. I've been gone for 4 hours. And so I went home and walked in the door, and he's not awake in his bed. So I was just like, no.
Oh,
No.
yeah, no.
I'm jumping up and down, screaming the F word, shaking him, getting on the phone, 911. They're like, okay, can you get him on the floor for CPR? And I was like, he's 250 pounds. I can't get him on the floor.
Without breaking something on it,
Yeah. And so they're like, okay. And they talked through it. They're great, whatever. Paramedic showed up, and I'm doing that thing, like, I guess, like, kind of what you were saying, where she's like having the wherewithal to figure out what to do. Like, okay, I'm like, all right, we're going to the hospital. They're working on him. I don't know what's happening. I'm just going to let them do their job. I grab his cell phone. I grab his keys. I grab his wallet. I grab his address book. I take a big swig of water because I had to give him CPR, and it was not pleasant. And my dad had a lot of family cousins there, So I called all them. They all came up there with
And
me.
at this point, you didn't know, they hadn't pronounced him officially gone.
Nope. No, at this point, it's like, okay, they're taking him to work on him and figure out what's going on. But like, I literally was like, I can't watch this, I'm just going to do what else I think I need to do. So I really didn't know if they were even able to get anything out of him.
But at least they showed up, and if they, whatever they were doing, they knew he must have not had been gone for very long, I suppose.
Right. I mean, I was only out of the house for 4 hours, and he was breathing and mumbling when I left. So I just think I'm like, what the hell? In that 4-hour time span, I'm just like targeting around, eating pizza with my grandma.
You're probably a little bit mad at yourself too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, I don't really feel guilty. I'm just like,
That's good. Oh, that's good.
what are the chances?
Yeah. What? Yeah. And also, did he like wait?
Right.
Did he wait?
Did he just feel relaxed because he knew I was there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But like, we talked some of those times when I was there, those few days, like he seemed worried about what he was going through, and like, he's like, the doctor thinks I might have had some mini strokes, but I don't know. And I'm just like, again, I have no idea that COPD is not something that you can just live with forever. And so what ends up happening, come to find out, is like you can't, your lungs aren't working and your heart's not working. So like it just, you don't heal from it. So it's a chronic illness. And I guess aside from being put on oxygen, which is maybe something he just didn't want to do, like there's not much you can do about it. So I'm over here thinking like, oh, you'll be okay, Dad. Like,
got a lot more time.
Yeah. And I remember sitting on his lap.
You lost your mom. I feel like, what are the odds? Like, I feel like, and it's probably a selfish and dumb thought that I would have, like, there's no way they would, like, something else would happen. Like, there's no way. Like, those would be my thoughts. Like, I would be like, I already lost one parent. There can't be another.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he looked at me one of those times. I remember I was like kind of probably like sitting on his lap, I feel like, and maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but he was like, oh, are you concerned at all? Like, I like kind of trying to express concern, but maybe didn't want to scare me. And I'm like, well, Dad, I mean, you're fine. Like, you're probably just not feeling good because it's like 4 years since Mom died. And, you just moved back to Tennessee. And, it's like, we need you, Dad. We need you. You'll be fine. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely didn't expect that at all. So then, I'm in the waiting room, the hospital. They like took him to work on him or whatever. And then the doctor comes in and was just like shaking his head. No.
Oh, God.
Were your brothers with you at this point, or was it still just you?
All by yourself?
I was with my cousins. Like, I had called all the family that I had in town, like my dad's cousins and one of his friends that he'd been like hanging out with a lot came up there. But no, my younger brother was in Dallas. And my older brother was in London, England.
Yeah, I was like, wasn't he somewhere? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
gosh.
I'm having to like this phone in this waiting room. I'm like dialing my calling card number so that I can call my brother in England.
Yeah, calling cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, shit.
It was, it was just terrible.
yeah, and especially when in that moment when you find him, you're like, no, not again. No.
Yeah. So what were some of your first initial thoughts, I guess, after like the doctor comes out and it is like he's gone? Like, what were some of your feelings? Obviously, like the fuck, but
I mean, I was literally, I'm pretty sure I was just like, okay, I'm in crisis mode. I'm going to do what I have to do now.
Plan another funeral. Great.
Yeah, make all the calls. He had a very meticulous like contact book and diary, like daily planner that he used all the time, and so he was. It was very easy to call all of his friends.
where he was, yeah.
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 And so I again that night, my dad's cousins let me stay with them, and I was like, Diane, I need a journal. I need you to find me like a notebook that I can write in.
There she goes again.
And yes,
Yep. So I did that. She gave me a little notebook. Still got it, and I used it a lot for like, figuring out how to plan it. And I had to wait for my brother to get back. Like he couldn't just come the next day.
Mm,
right.
I had my cousins were like getting really anxious with me. Like we got all these people waiting on us to like tell them what the funeral situation is, and you don't have anything planned yet. I'm like, dude, I'm not
I have no parents.
about my brother. Yeah. And I'm not doing that until my brother gets here, because after my mom died, like my dad made sure that all of his paperwork was in order, because my mom had
good.
everything.
I was going to ask that too. All those affairs. That's how my mom is too. So that's good that he at least, so all of his affairs were in order. So that makes it a little bit easier. And that
had to be the longest plane ride, like longest journey home for your brother. Like the longest, like I can't, like I was already, as you were telling the story about your mom and you having to go home, like I can't imagine like what do you do, like you were journaling and like trying to like process through in that manner, but like I just couldn't imagine. And it's not like once you get somewhere, it's not like you go to the place, you gather, right, after somebody's died, and it's not like when you're gathering, you're doing anything different than like the travel time. But like I just feel like I would not be, it would just be so long, the longest rides home, like with your thoughts.
Yep.
I'm sure it was for him. And I mean, I think back on, okay, well, thank goodness I was there, because
Who it would have been a while.
how long would he have been there without me?
Yeah.
I don't know who even like had a key in there,
Yep.
So it was all like the worst situation, but like I'm glad it was me.
Yeah.
And
All right. It probably would have been like your grandma calling and calling.
And being like, I can't get a hold of your dad. I can't get a hold of your dad.
And and then you maybe traveling down from St. Louis at that point to walk. Yeah. You had a lot of great conversations with him at the end.
Yeah, there's something to that. I also had like a closure type of conversation with my mom the night that she died, which to this day still brings me, not closure's not the right word, but it brings me some kind of peace and comfort. Yeah, that like the last words I said to her were like, I love you and I can't wait for you. Like, I come home tomorrow, like those kinds of things. I'm always grateful that with a lot of the people I've lost in my life, unknowingly so, but like the last conversations I had with them, even with Alex, like my best friend who committed suicide, they were all good conversations. So like I don't carry any guilt of like, and I said I hated you before you got into a car accident or like any of that. And I think that kind of helps with my grief too.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I could also then just explain like, well, of course I didn't know why he died. So like I was waiting and waiting for the autopsy report to figure out like what actually happened, because I knew he had gone through, he was thinking he might have had some strokes or whatever, and he was getting like brain scans and stuff. And I kept thinking like, he's got this lung problems, why was the doctor even like looking at his lungs? But anyway, they said his cause of death was cardiomegaly, which is like enlarged heart, which you really only see that in like athletes, I guess. But my medical opinion is that his lungs weren't working well, and so his heart was like overcompensating to like push the oxygen. I think all of those symptoms were like he had really low oxygen levels. So yeah, he's gonna be sleeping all the time. He's not gonna feel good. He's, be very fatigued and everything. So that was it. Yeah, and also my mom had high blood pressure, probably from smoking, which caused her aortic aneurysm and the dissection. My dad had COPD from his smoking, which led to this condition. So I've never smoked in my life.
Yeah.
Same. Highly discouraged.
Wow.
Highly discouraged as well. I have not. Yeah, I too have never smoked in my life. And both of my parents smoked. My stepdad smoked. Ben's parents, I actually joke with him all the time. Ben's parents smoked until we had a dog. And so I'm always,
yeah.
LOL, your parents quit for your kid.
Well, also just culturally, like the world has changed a lot around the allure of smoking. We can't smoke in hardly anywhere anymore. So
No, we used to be able to smoke inside a Venture, inside the Food Avenue in Target. There would be
I'm sorry, did you say Venture?
Venture. You remember Venture?
Throwback. Oh, yeah. The black flag?
Yeah. Fresh popcorn.
Yes, fresh pop popcorn.
Maybe Venture didn't have like a food area. Maybe that was just Target.
Well, no, because back in the day, Kmart did too.
A food area?
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. Oh, wow.
Yeah. You can, I went to a bowling alley recently. Don't recommend. I don't like bowling at all. You could still smoke in the food, like in the bar area. Yeah. I was like, why?
No.
yeah,
And like, go outside.
Yes. It's so gross.
It's so gross. And it's like, I grew up with smokers and I never, my mom is also like really, really into like air fresheners and making sure it didn't smell like, but you can't really hide that shit. It still smells like, it's just like smell. And so like, I just like the way it just like, I felt like it was like,
it increases that over times a bajillion. Just
so dramatic.
Being around.
Yeah.
Fandangos in Valley Park still.
Yes, you can still smoke at Fandangos. We always laugh about that too.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess we should like move on to how my becoming a mom is involved in all this too, right?
It's like that at a pre-chat. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Let's see. So what year was it your dad passed away?
2007.
Okay. And then when did you have your baby girl?
2021.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick note too, I wanted to mention about your grief equilibrium. Oh yeah. Is that mine with my mom was last year.
Oh,
So 19 years after I was 19.
wow.
Yeah, so this year will be 20 years since she passed away. So the first year, I mean, I would always go back and see my dad and like spend time with him and all that. But so I decided when it was like 10 years after my mom died that I needed to do something. I was like, I just know in my gut that this is something that I want to do. And I wanted to go spend the night in that hotel room.
You're like Rashida. She does that shit. Like just drive straight forward, one on. No, but you drive into your grief hard. Yeah. No way.
I do literally just like hit the gas pedal on like to feel. I know that it's coming, and I like just get on in it. But this is beyond me. Wow,
Cat. Oh my God. Go on.
In a way, it's like,
No.
How did you? I heard a lot of follow-ups.
Yeah. You had thought about this before.
I don't know how long I thought about it, but when it came time to like planning it out, I was just like, yeah, I'm doing this.
So
like, no question.
You called not the hospital. You called the hotel and you were like, I would like to stay in this specific room.
Yeah, I had to. Okay, so I actually had her key card from that night because we had her purse and everything. So I saved that. Not that it had a room number on it, but
yeah,
I got the room number somehow. I think I found it on the ambulance report.
Oh, okay.
Because I guess they what room she was in, or somehow I figured out what room she was in. And yeah, I made the reservation for a room, and then I called them, and I was like, I had enough time in advance. I was like, it's really important to me that I stay in this room. Mm-hmm. Do you think you can make that happen? And they were like, oh yeah, I think so. For sure, no problem. And it was not a problem to do. So I went.
What was that?
It was great. I mean, I talked a little bit about how like I didn't witness it. So like I just had this whole picture of a hotel room in my head.
Mm.
And I had been to the room where I knew the gala was because I'd been to other events for that same charity there. So like I had a picture of like her night the night before. But something about it is like I just need to see this. I need to visualize this space. And Rashida, did you go to Nicole and Brian's wedding? Were you there? Were you
Yeah.
friends with them then? Okay.
Yeah, I was.
So
Were you
I had
there?
to miss
How funny.
I had to miss their wedding because I went to do this. Yeah. And so I'll never forget that.
Their wedding was the inspiration for Ben and I's, actually.
Oh, cute. It was great. My friends video chatted me while we were there and called me, and Chris was my boyfriend at the time. We weren't engaged yet, but he went without me to the wedding, and so I felt really loved because they all knew that I wasn't going to be there, and they like sent a care package to the hotel for me.
Stop. Oh my God.
Yeah. And I
do this. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like snuck into town. I didn't tell my grandmother I was coming. I had like my friend pick me up and just drive me straight to the hotel. I stopped at the 7-Eleven, got a bottle of red wine, and I just I walked around the lobby and like into the room where the banquet hall was, or the event, and it was completely empty and dark. Like the door was open. I was like, oh my gosh, I can go in here, but it was like completely empty and dark. So I just kind of like stood in there for a little bit, and then I went to the bar and like got a Shiner Bock beer and just kind of sat by myself, just like taking it in. And then I stayed the night in the room, ordered a crap ton of room service food for the next morning. I took a bath, drank wine, watched TV, just like, I don't know, I probably journaled, I don't remember. But,
Yeah.
Something symbolic. Yeah.
I just sat there. I just sat there with it and was like, okay, this is my spot that I can, I don't know, honor her, just remember her. And
It's almost like you got some closure from it in a bit, right? Like you said, you had spent 10 years kind of trying to visualize, which isn't shocking to me. You said you journaled, you drew, you sketched, you did all of these things. So like you are a visual person who is processing through visual aids, right? And so I feel like this probably put your mind at rest almost. Like you didn't have to come up with, and I could be speaking out of turn, so correct me for sure if I'm wrong, but like your mind probably didn't have to work so much as much anymore to like create a scenario because
Right.
saw it. Like you saw it. And so my initial thought was, whoa, what a crazy woman.
I know. Yeah.
But now
Like putting your mind at rest.
yes. Now I'm like, now your brain doesn't have to do that. Like it doesn't have to, like you almost like freed up extra space in your brain to do other stuff, like to heal from your grief and not keep trying to figure out to plug that space. So while it sounds wild in theory,
a little alarming at first, I'm sure.
Yeah. My initial thought was, the F?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like,
put my therapist hat on.
I mean, I super witnessed my dad's death. So it's like, it was just the complete opposite where I just had no clue. And even sometimes when I think back on it, when I'm telling the story, I actually do picture like the made up images in my head as opposed to like the real space, but it doesn't like bother me,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just something I just knew I had to do. I've kind of always been that way, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah. You'd have to experience it for yourself, I guess.
So,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do want to talk through then how all of this intersects with your motherhood, because for someone who like truly, like when you say feel your feels, you did that.
Yeah.
Like,
Hard.
you did that hard in both of those scenarios, right? And it's almost like I like to say I did a lot of work before I became a mom. Like I did a lot of therapy work to like kind of not heal, but like understand where my grief was coming from so that I wasn't carrying that over into motherhood. But that's because I didn't do the work out of the gate. Like you did. You processed yourself through it. Which is extremely healthy. I can't get over how healthy it is.
I know.
Well, I mean, I had some bad choices along the way too that I'm sure were part of,
as we all do.
Yeah.
An old bartender. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to me about then, becoming a mom and what that has meant for you. About your parents.
I thought a lot about, the place where I am in life. Like Chris and I've been married for about 5 years now, and since we've been together, it's like we always sort of knew that that's something we'd like to do. If we were so lucky to. I know not everyone has an easy time becoming a parent, but I guess I got pregnant that year of the pandemic. So I guess I could backtrack a little bit, because at the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody was grieving the world changing, I feel like I have to start this way, Rashida. Not just like, because that everything all goes together, all blends together at this point. So I manage a print shop, and I started working there with Greg. He owned the print shop, and we became instant friends like 2011 when I started working there, and we're very close. Grew the print shop, very successful, had a lot of fun. So he's basically like my partner in the business. And then April 2020, like right after the stay-at-home orders and everything, he finds out he has stage 4 colon cancer.
Oh no.
I know, a little bit triggery for you, Kara.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm gutted. Like already, nobody knows what's going on.
No one knows it yet.
Nobody knows what's going on. I'm working in a business where you have to like physically be there to work. Like you can't just print stuff at home. Like, I'm a manager, so I also have to like figure out how to manage a few people, and then now I'm dealing with okay, how do I deal with this like impending loss of someone very close to me that I see every day, and
who's a part business owner with you,
right? Like I
gonna affect your personal life,
right? Like it's his family business. I'm basically family. I don't have any like ownership stake in the company, but I treat it as my own, and that's just I don't know, the benefit of having a small business too. Like I don't know, they've been so great to me, that whole family. But so that was like, the beginning, mid year, and then we got pregnant in July we found out we were pregnant. And I mean, everybody knows all the stuff that was happening in the world during that time. It was pretty terrible. I think everybody had a bit of the blues at that time, and that's how I was feeling for sure. And I was like losing weight, and I didn't know why. And then I got pregnant. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I just have to make sure I eat. And anyway, I had a lot of time to think. Like, we were intentional about having children, so it wasn't like anything that came as a surprise. It was very welcome for us, and something positive to look forward to for sure. And so, I thought a lot about how I was pretty much the same age my mom was, and she had me. And like all these things, like how did she feel? Like, I don't even know if I was breastfed. Like, I can't, all these questions I can't ask her about going through this, Of course, I've got tons of friends who become parents that I can talk to, but
not the same.
I actually, and I honestly, I had tried to ask my grandmother and my aunt too, because before we started trying to have children, I was like, what if my mom had fertility issues that I don't know about? Like, what if there's something that I should know about? Like, I did know from the autopsy that she had a growth in her uterus that was very large.
Oh, wow.
That she probably didn't know she had because she never went to the doctor. And so that's something that I was like, well, what if I start having those? Is that going to affect my fertility?
Yeah.
So I really was
is that genetic? like?
Yeah, what was that? Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of those things kind of went through my mind, and I had a pretty easy pregnancy. Yeah, everything went great, and then um, my water broke at 36 weeks and a day.
Oh wow.
So earlier than expected, and then I had complications of high blood pressure during labor that elevated to like HELP syndrome, which is like a super rare, like extra preeclampsia.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd never heard of it, but I had
it's really rare, and like I think only this past year have I heard of it. So that's yeah.
After we looked up, it's like 1 in 20,000, or there's only 20,000 cases a year or something.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, I was all messed up in labor, and my baby was great. Like, she didn't have any problems. It was, we're really lucky on that respect. That but like Chris and I had to make a lot of really tough decisions about my care while that was all going on. And it was February 2021. At this point, nobody was really vaccinated except medical workers against COVID, and you couldn't have like a ton of people at the hospital, so it was just Chris and our doula, and thankfully we had her, because
It was like, you could have a doula. I couldn't have it. It was literally just me. Like, there were points in 2020 where I didn't even know if I would get Ben in the room with me.
Yeah.
Parker was terrible. Of 2020.
Yeah.
And right before that, in like April, May, in New York, they had it could only be the birthing person. And so, And now I remember just like hyperventilating. Because it was like, what if that happens? Anyway, so.
It was like day by day changed.
Yeah. So I mean, we had, it was good that we felt safe with like all of the staff was vaccinated, and we felt safe. We had very good care, but it got very complicated, and it was traumatic for sure, because at this one point they were like, okay, well, it's been 24 hours. Your water's broke, 24 hours ago. So, now your blood pressure is so high that we got to get that placenta out of there, and you're not, close enough to push. So we probably have to do C-section. And because of your HELP syndrome, you either have to go under general anesthesia, which can be a risk to the baby, or
and then you don't remember that, then you're not like present for the birth,
Right. Then it's like either that, or we can give you an epidural, but then we risk you bleeding out because of this blood thing you have going on.
Oh no.
And so it's like, can we have a minute?
Yeah.
And I'm really out of it because they have me on magnesium to control my syndrome, to prevent seizures and seizures and stroke. So I'm like I can barely keep my eyes open, sort of thing, and I'm also like having contractions, like that. And so we have to like make this really tough decision. And I mean, from Chris's point of view, it's like I was just like, I don't know, barely there, but he had to help make these decisions, And we opted for the general anesthesia because
that seemed like the safer,
it seemed safer.
Yeah, the lower.
And she, and all of her vitals were great. So like they didn't think that she was, there was anything to be concerned about with her. So, they had the whole like NICU team there apparently. And when she came out, like screaming and crying and looking great, they were like, "Oh, well, see ya, she's fine."
No, I just saw it.
Even though she was like almost a month early, she didn't have any problems. She was just really
God.
Yeah. And I had to. Chris couldn't even be in the room because when you have you under general anesthesia, you can't have your partner in there. So he was just like in another room,
straight up OR,
by himself. And then they're like, "Where are you? Here's your baby." And then he's got the baby without me.
Here's your baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just while your wife's in the other room and, yeah, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, we had a pretty traumatic birthing experience. I was not myself for like 24, 48 hours after that. I had to do everything.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep my eyes open. I remember that my OB coming in to like check on me, 6 hours after the surgery. And I was just like, I can't talk to you right now. I can't comprehend anything that's going on right now. And she's like, okay, I'll come back later.
Okay.
But yeah, it wasn't until like we got moved to another room that Chris and I finally got like a minute to even look at each other and like talk about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because after, we were together, she's like, okay, try to feed her. This and that, all these tests.
Are they really? Seriously?
Yeah.
They like woke you up from general anesthesia, and we're like, all right, whip that titty out. Like, let's go.
No. No, not really. I mean, they
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I hope
No.
not.
The process of events was like they got her, they checked her out, brought her to Chris while they stitched me up, and then they brought me to the room. And then Chris and I got, he was holding the baby and he put her on me and like, yeah. And I like kind of remember all that. But I was like hallucinating, like mad in that room. Like I was looking at a curtain and I'm like, it's all swirly and dotted and like, this is weird. I feel terrible. So, but I mean, like after we got into like the antepartum room, they had to keep a really close eye on me because of the HELP syndrome. So they had people checking on me all the time, checking my vitals. But I healed really well and we got out of there. We went in Monday morning and left Friday afternoon.
Good. Yeah, but that's the nice thing about a C-section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You get a little bit extra time.
Yeah. You get extra time, and then they were also like,
with your help.
My blood pressure was okay, and
yes,
I felt fine. That's a weird thing. Is like looking back on it, I didn't feel bad when they were saying my blood pressure was high and my liver enzymes were out of whack. I didn't feel bad.
Weird. Do you think you would feel like
you would feel that?
Yeah. I was just like laboring and having contractions. I didn't have any pain meds or anything, so I was just like, yeah, I'm in this.
Daughter pain meds. Dang, girl. And was that your plan to do?
That was my plan. Yeah.
Oh. So that's kind of like another mini grief journey,
Yeah.
Just like that. Like you had a specific birth plan, and it wasn't able to be followed. Then you were on another.
Not only was it not able to be followed, it went like completely sideways. Like you weren't even able to. Like it's not like. And then you had to get an epidural. It's like, no, you actually have to be like put all the way out. Like,
yeah, and like you were like talking about like, what if I die? Like, was the baby safe?
Yeah,
like,
those are scary conversations. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, and I was always realistic. Like, I know my mom had C-sections for all three of us, so I was like, okay, I'm like, cool if that's how it's got to go. But this is what I want to do, and then of course with my water breaking early, then that really just like eliminates a lot of options.
Yeah.
Too. Like I couldn't get in a bathtub, and like even when I tried to like run the shower water on the 6th floor of Mercy, it's like doesn't get hot. But okay,
yeah,
So yeah, it was.
That would explain. I was gonna ask why. After your water broke, because I have preterm labor with Parker at 33 weeks. And the doctor was pretty much like, all right, the goal is just to get you to 35. And if at 35, we're going to if you go into labor at 35, we're not going to stop it. And so I was going to ask, like, why didn't they give you medicine that, like, after your water broke, why didn't they give you medicine to, like,
slow it down?
No, not to slow it down.
Speed it up.
It was already, like at 96 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm golden, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Parker was not slow. Yeah. Parker was 36 and 6. Like,
yeah.
So I'm going to ask, but if you were trying to go natural, that probably is why.
Yeah. I didn't want to, like, there were no signs of any issues at the beginning. So it's like, no, I don't need to like rush this out. I want to like labor to start naturally now. And like, there was like one thing that I took that was supposed to like help a little bit. And then when it wasn't progressing, then they gave me like a little bit of Pitocin. I was like, I don't want to just like rush into this,
Yeah.
And, kind of like, well, maybe I should have, blah, blah, blah. I can't think about it like that. But
no.
Yeah, that was I definitely could have just been like, okay, epidural Pitocin, let's do this.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, given that traumatic ass birth story, the trauma of not having your parents, also, what is that? How are you feeling kind of coming out of that, and I guess coming into your motherhood?
Yeah, there's just so many things I wish I could ask them about it. You know, I definitely compare. I think back on like how lucky we were that my dad he was working from home as an artist. And so he was just around all the time, you know. My mom worked a lot, but she was around too. Like we just had, I feel like, a very good relationship with them growing up. And then that's like something that I wanted for my family too. And, you know, just even asking my mom things like, how did you go back to work?
Yeah.
Good
after having a
fucking
newborn?
yeah.
Yeah, good question.
No.
Yeah.
Because that was friggin' tough for me.
It's
Yeah,
still tough
And,
for me.
and I did not expect it at all. Like I just didn't expect it. I just thought like, oh yeah, I could do this. Oh my God. I mean, by the time I went back,
Too soon.
yeah. And
I
she
don't know
was,
how much time you had off, but if it was like the standard 12 weeks or whatever, not enough.
yeah. Yeah, I did have 3 months and then I took a little bit more because I was like, asked them, it's like, hey, if I just like don't figure out childcare or like I'm not quite ready, like, can I come back on part-time, whatever. And they were, yeah, like I said, they've always treated me really well. So, it was still just like, did my mom breastfeed? Did she pump? Like, what were pumps even like back then? Like, when I was born, she didn't work for her dad yet. So I don't know what time off she even got. But like, because my dad worked at home and he could really make his own schedule, like, I bet she got a lot of, you know, he probably did a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
Well,
not typical for that time either.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
And you probably just want them to be around to see and to interact and hold your baby and just
Have just the comfort and care of your parents.
That was gonna be
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
No, there was definitely like, we couldn't have people over at the house because it was still COVID time. And you know that, Rashida. And like, there was a moment where I did like put my hands on the sink in the bathroom and look in the mirror. It was just like, this is why people have their moms come over, you know? Like, yeah, these are the times like you just want your mom to be here and like hold the baby so you can like lay down for a minute. Or like,
So you can
pee,
as another
or like
tinkle.
walk outside or like,
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know, anything. And Cameron was really, really colicky baby. So but it was like, it was just very tough, especially with her being so tiny. Like she was only 5 pounds 4 ounces when she was born. So then it was like this little delicate thing, and yeah, it was tough. And I just like I want to know, like, what was I like as a baby? I have no idea.
Was I colicky? Were my siblings colicky?
Yeah.
My brother's
That's
like,
all of those questions too. Or like I had really bad morning sickness. And it didn't occur to me to ask anybody if my mom had really bad morning sickness. I think my dad eventually told me that she did. Like, but this is when I was pregnant with Parker. Like, it didn't occur to me that A, of all that can be hereditary, and B, to even ask. Like, for some strange reason, I was just like, yeah, I'll be fine. And then I had debilitating sickness with both kids. And like, I'm like, that would have been nice to know.
yeah. And you don't expect that at all.
Nope.
So
No,
yeah.
not at all.
Well, I guess I can sort of tie up this ends and this story because this last year has been really hard for me because of Greg's diagnosis, my coworker and essentially business partner, not on paper, but you know, in my heart. He passed away in April 5th of 2022. So like literally like 2 years after his diagnosis. So he was on hospice. He went through a lot of treatment, a lot of things. He like did an experimental thing, didn't work. And then, we were prepared, planning for it. And so he passed away, and then that was April, and then we had this big old celebration of life in May, and I this is my life. Like I'm running his business. I'm like, before that, like I'm going back to work as a new mother in this family business where they have all raised their children in this company, and I'm now trying to manage it without him as a new mother. And like it was just a very difficult time. And then after he died and we had this party, I was like, okay, now I really have to like figure out what my plan is. Like, how am I going to keep this business going? Start hiring people. I hired like 3 people at the same time. It was really hard. And right around that time, somebody else close to me had a loss, a sudden, unexpected, terrible loss in their family. And that was like very close to like everybody else that I was around at the time. And it's not really my story to tell, but it was devastating for me too. So it's like, okay, Greg, and now this person. And then not a little month and a half later, Greg's wife dies suddenly.
Get out. No.
And I was just like, I'm done. Like, I cannot handle this right now.
No, she's done. She's paid her dues. She's done.
Like,
somebody out there.
I'm in a break.
Yeah.
Like, goodness.
That's mom and dad. Come on. We're done.
Send her
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, out of the fog, my child is a little over 2 now. I mean, I feel like my new people I hired at work are all settling into place.
Good.
Successful and
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of myself in her, like just in the way she looks. And so I, look at baby pictures and pictures of my mom and dad when I was a kid. I think about my family a lot, obviously, every day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. How will you, and you might not have the answer for this totally yet, but like as she gets older, how will you keep your mom and dad's kind of spirit alive with her?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of your questions was like, how do you honor your parents too?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's really not hard for me to do, for a few reasons. And one of them is like, we definitely show her pictures of my parents and say, that's Papa Brad and that's Grandma Carolyn.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't really say anything about where they are. She's not really asking that yet, but
Yeah.
But my father, I mentioned he was an artist, worked from home. And so we have been left with a huge library of his artwork. So,
I'm sure.
I mean, there's like a shelf full of it behind me here, and it's everywhere in our house and like on all kinds of things. And I'll be like, Cameron, who drew this picture? And she'll be like, Papa Brad.
Oh, so that's cute.
Yeah, I mean, I honor him all the time because I'm still trying to keep his artwork alive. Like, there's a lot of people from the 70s and 80s that knew of him that contact me every once in a while. Saying that they have a piece or they have photos of him they want to share with me. So, I've got a website for him. And in 2018, I had an art show in St. Louis for him, a huge retrospective down on Cherokee Street. And it was like just phenomenal and amazing. And like,
that is
turnout.
amazing.
Yeah.
And it was also like 2 months after our wedding. It's like, okay, I just planned a wedding. Now I'm planning this.
Yeah.
But it was another one of those things where like, yeah, this is what I have to do. And I just like was all in. There was no question about doing it. And Chris was like right there with me, like went through everything with me and like helped me plan it all. And I had several friends that helped. Anyway, it was just, I feel like I definitely honored my dad for sure in that way. He would have loved it. And so, yeah, showing her all of his artwork, and there's lots. I mean, he was a documentarian for sure. Like, he never threw anything away. He like was a English major in college, so he like wrote all the time. So there's just like, I've got
which is funny then, because then you are documented.
Yeah.
Or Felix. Or no, right? Cat, I hope that anyone who listens to this episode takes away the feel your feels. like I feel like you have seen a lot of loss, my friend. Like I feel like we need like a part 2, 3, 4 episodes for you to like dive more into all of the pieces of it, right? So like we focused a lot today on your mom and the loss of them, but obviously losing like your business partner is also another giant grief journey inside of a grief journey of becoming a mom without your parents, inside of the grief journey that is the pandemic. And so I just want to applaud you for also having the wherewithal during like so many points of your life. Like you may not realize it, but listening to your story during so many points of your life and of your grief journey, which is, it's always fun to like get to like hear everybody's life kind of like laid out in front of us like this, and then Kara and I get to diagnose as if we like such a thing. But they were you seemed just like so in tune with yourself and your feelings and the things that you needed to do for yourself. So like even if they were weird, when you were like, I wouldn't stay in the same hotel that my mom had it, and Karen like, the fuck? But you're like, that's what I needed to do. You're like, but that's what I needed to do. And I just want to applaud you for that. That at every step of every encounter with grief, as you would say, really
very self-aware.
You really took the time to like drive into those feelings and like work them through. And I think that's probably one of the reasons you're as strong in yourself as you stand before us today, you know, because you took a lot of time to feel your feels.
You just did it. And you didn't like wait. You didn't wait. You just did it. And in the moment, there's something to be said for that. Seriously.
Thanks. I mean, I definitely feel like at 19, it was so, I mean, Rashida, you were 16, right? So like
15,
it was life-changing. 15. Yeah. So like, it was just life-changing at that point. It's like, okay, suddenly, right. Like I have to be like conscious of what I'm doing and like, just pay attention and I don't know, grow up in a way. I guess I feel like it.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though I was technically an adult. You know, I was orphaned at 23 years old. And so it's like, okay, suddenly, we have a lot of stuff to do. Like we have to clean out this house, another house again. And, you know, lots of business to take care of. But I will say too, like I didn't really get past the Megan passing away story, but like that night too, I will bring up that they had 3 children, and so all I could think about that night I found out about her passing, like, was those 3 kids and like how they are now in the same situation that my 2 brothers were in, and that brought up like so much PTSD for me that night that I didn't expect at all. You know, grief is not linear. Like this is it. That snuck up on me. Like I never thought that the things that went through my head that night were so buried deep down in me that I like had totally forgotten about some of that stuff. And it was really tough to sleep that night.
Oh, sure. But also maybe reassuring though, because you've been through it, so you can kind of be like, maybe it's even reassuring to them. To be like, I mean, I know it is. But someone who is like, as soon as you hear that, like, oh, I lost my mom or whoever, like, it's an automatic. Like, I just automatically feel close, and like whatever you say, I just take to heart.
Same,
because you know,
and I'm in their lives. You know, I'm in their. I don't see them all the time, but like they already knew who I was. They, you know, with their dad passing away, like all of these people in their families and their parents' lives were there. So they got to know probably more than if their dad had died suddenly. So many of those people that they were close to, you know, so their village was huge by the time they lost their mom. And like, they just had such a support system. But I'm in their lives because I work at their family's business. So I hope that I can be there for them as they get older, because they're all under the age of 12. So
what?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I figured they're like adult children.
No. My Greg and Megan were 40. Greg and Megan were 40. Yeah. But I got a call from one of my best friends from college after she found out about Megan, and she was like, "Kat, I don't know why this is happening to you again."
That was I said that in the Facebook or in my Instagram message. I was like, Cat,
Yeah.
Cat,
Stop, universe.
yes, let her know. Like,
Paid her.
done enough. Yes.
We all have two, by the way. Don't forget.
Yeah. Don't
Universe,
We're good. We're
leave
good.
them alone, and everybody listen to the
And I'm just gonna say, and everybody listen.
Good.
Yeah.
We're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kat,
Okay. Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough for coming on this podcast. Well, I can't thank you enough for listening to Kara and I twice all the way through. That's amazing.
Yeah. How are your ears bleeding?
I did my homework.
Yes.
I wanted to make straight A's again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much for coming on here and telling your story. There's so many pieces of it that I think are going to be so helpful to so many people, right? Like your story transcends more than just losing a mom or losing a dad, but like also losing both parents. And then just like the different levels of grief inside of that as well. So yes.
Well, if you get some good feedback on this episode and people want to hear more, I'm happy to come back.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kat, for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. It's for the good.
Yeah.
It is for the good.
I already know like several people I'm going to hit up and be like, hey, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this. Cause I do. Yeah. I've recommended your podcast to several women and who, are on grief journeys as mothers. So I hope that they will, if they haven't listened yet, that they will pick up here for sure.
Oh yeah. At least give us a follow on Instagram. That's like, I feel well, I'm just saying because you can like dip your big toe.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or your
That's
big
true.
toe or whatever that is. And it's like that way. Because
Just your big toe.
Just your big toe, your baby toe. I don't know. Dip a toe and try it out because sometimes not everyone's in the mood to be griefy.
Yeah.
Even Rashida and I, like Anderson Cooper has a new podcast out, and I will still like cap up an episode, and boy, it's good.
Okay. All right.
Very good. But at the same time, you have to be in the mood, So you can't just always be,
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, gals, thanks so much for listening to the Grieving Mamas Club podcast. When times get tough, just remember, you're a badass bee and you got this, mama.